What's going on, guys? It's Sean here with Gadget Reason, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the top 5 complaints or problems that people have with the new iPhone 7. Now, I think most people would agree that tech enthusiasts are some of the hardest to please consumers pretty much for any product category. They're the most educated, they do the most amount of research, and they have the highest level of expectations for what manufacturers are going to bring out each year. So that means device manufacturers are under an incredible amount of pressure to somehow top whatever latest greatest smartphone that they developed the year before. And if you look at the incredibly fast growth rate of smartphones over the past few years, you can see how that would be a pretty big challenge for device manufacturers to try and find a way to get consumers excited about a new phone every single year. So every year, inevitably, when a new device comes out, you don't have to look very far on the internet or YouTube to find people talking about all the things that they do or do not like about any new model. So in this video, we're going to break down the 5 most common things that I hear in terms of complaints or problems that people had with this year's iPhone design. Now, as somebody who's been using the iPhone 7 Plus ever since it was released, I can tell you that most of the things in this list really have had zero impact on my user experience. But your mileage may vary, so check it out and let me know what you guys think. First up, we have the camera bump. Now, the camera bump has been something that's been widely discussed since the very first version of the iPhone 6 was announced almost 2 years ago. I think that the biggest problem that people have with the iPhone having this bump where the camera housing is just simply the fact that people expect more from Apple design. People thought that Apple could come up with a more elegant solution than just making this sort of protruding bump. Now that the iPhone 7 Plus is released and it has the dual lens feature on the back, the camera bump is only all that much more pronounced. Now, some people had said that they would rather have had Apple make the iPhone thicker and just be able to hide the camera bump under the thicker body of the phone. I like the thin design of the iPhone, and that's something that's really appealing to me. There's only a few times where this typically becomes a problem for me, and that's really going to be when I'm using the phone as a calculator, perhaps with just one hand being preoccupied doing something else on a computer or something similar, and I have to type on the numbers on the screen. You can occasionally see that little bit of rocking when you press the clear key. And then the only other time that I really use my phone laying flat on a surface where I'm not holding it physically in my hand would be if I'm eating or doing something where I'm otherwise distracted and I'm perhaps maybe scrolling through a web page as I'm reading while I eat, or maybe if it's just maybe scrolling through some emails real quickly while I'm typing on my keyboard or using another device. I think the reality is that this is not going to affect most people's user experience, and if the only option for keeping the phone this thin is to have a slight bump on the camera, I'm all cool with that. Now, obviously, no list of iPhone 7 complaints would be complete without talking about the headphone jack, or the lack thereof. Now, this was something to be rumored long before the iPhone 7 announcement actually took place, and even then, people were pretty upset about the idea of Apple removing the standard 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, Apple was smart enough to at least include the Lightning to 3.5mm adapter for free in the box. For me, I think that they could have gone with a little bit thicker cable, something that was a little bit closer to maybe the thickness of the charging cable that comes standard with all iPhones and iPads. It is a little bit on the flimsy side, and it's not even as thick as the cable that's built into my favorite pair of ATH M50s from Audio-Technica. So it's a pretty flimsy cable, and I am concerned about how it's going to hold up over time. But Apple did include it in the box, and if you need to replace it, it's only $9.99, so it's not the end of the world. You can leave the dongle connected to the headphones that you use most frequently with your iPhone, and you really shouldn't have any reason to worry about losing it. If you are interested in other solutions, there are some pretty easy workarounds for the problem of the iPhone not having a 3.5mm headphone jack. One solution is to get a Bluetooth receiver adapter like the one you see here from MPOW. I got this on Amazon for about $9, really cheap. It's an easy to use, easy to carry around device. It's really small. On one side, it has a charging port for the built-in rechargeable battery, and on the other side, it has a standard 3.5mm headphone jack. So basically, you just plug in your favorite pair of headphones, and it turns them essentially into Bluetooth headphones. Basically, any Bluetooth-enabled device can then stream directly to the MPOW, and you can use your standard headphones to listen to audio from that device. The MPOW adapter does have a play and pause button as well as volume keys, which is a nice extra feature. Another option is to get a good pair of Bluetooth headphones or earbuds, like the Jaybird X2s I have here. I've been using these for about 2 years. They're really sturdy, really solid, water resistant. They have great sound, good highs, and a decent amount of bass for earbuds. So given all these various options, as well as the plethora of options that'll probably be coming available as the iPhone 7 continues to flood the market, I really don't see this being too big of an issue for most people. Next up is the screen resolution. And over the past couple of years, Apple has been getting a lot of grief grief for not keeping up with the pixel wars that have been going on amongst most of the smartphone manufacturers. My argument here is that the iPhone 7 has a beautiful display. At a 1920 by 1080p resolution and a pixel density of 401 ppi, the iPhone 7 is still one of the best displays on the market. Whatever it lacks in resolution, it makes up for in a wider color gamut. It has a wide color gamut display that can display the DCI P3 color space and a peak brightness of 705 nits, which is really bright. So this is another one of those complaints that I would just chalk up to being something that really will not inhibit most people's user experience. At the end of the day, the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus have some of the most gorgeous displays you'll find on any smartphone. Next up, we have the design. A lot of people gave Apple a lot of heat for not changing the design from the iPhone 6 or the 6 Plus to the iPhone 7. Most of the design changes that Apple chose on the iPhone 7 mostly went into keeping a similar, more familiar design, but with a few added features or benefits. A couple of more notable changes that Apple made to the iPhone design was getting rid of that aforementioned headphone jack, as well as removing the physical home button that the iPhone has become known for over the years. Changing the design of those two areas on the iPhone probably went a long way towards helping make the iPhone more water resistant, which is one of the features that Apple really wanted to bring to the iPhone 7. And finally, we have stereo speakers on an iPhone. This one's kind of a big deal because a lot of high-end Android phones have had stereo speakers for a while now, and I'm glad Apple was finally able to incorporate this into their new design. So there are now two speakers on the new iPhone 7, one under the earpiece and another at the bottom of the phone where there's always been a speaker on all previous iPhones. It may not be quite as good as some of the speakers in, say, some of the HTC phones that had the boom sound speakers, but it is a hands-down improvement over any audio we've had on an iPhone previously. And last up, we have the previously mentioned home button. Now, I'm surprised to hear a lot of people complaining or having issues with the fact that the physical button just feels very different, because after about a day or a day and a half, my brain totally forgot and fully believes that this is a real physical button. It still behaves basically the same way I've always come to expect an iPhone home button to react, and I haven't really noticed any kind of limitations or problems with it not being a physical button. The most obvious benefit to Apple removing a physical home button is that it's one less cutout or opening in the body for water to seep into. Now, whether you like Apple's decision to remove the physical home button or not, I think the most important thing is that none of the physical capabilities of it have changed. It's not slower, it doesn't lag, and it still functions exactly the way you'd expect a home button to behave on an iPhone. So that's it, guys. That's my top 5 list of problems that people have been discussing related to the changes to the new iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. If you guys think there's something in this list that should have been included, leave that in the comment section below. And also, how have any of these changes been affecting your user experience with your iPhone 7? As always, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Gadget Reason. And make sure you subscribe to this channel and give me a thumbs up if you like this video and you want to see more content like this in the future. That's it for me. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.